What is up, YouTube? So, a few weeks ago I made a video talking about how the retro game market is crashing, and there was a bunch of confusion. Now when I was talking about this, I wasn't talking about the retro game prices in general. I was just talking about the graded market that Carl Jopes and them was talking about. So I'm sorry about the confusion in that. I had a lot of comments and stuff that people were like, it's not crashing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, so I just wanted to make a follow-up video to talk a little bit more about that. So when the video came out, it was talking about the retro graded market itself. So when this fad, trending, or whatever to get everything sealed, basically graded, and they were selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff like that when it first started, that is really dropped off. So what do I mean by dropped off? I'm saying like 90% decrease in a lot of games. There was games that were selling graded 9s, mint, and stuff like that for, like I said, tens of hundreds of thousands, and now they're barely going for a few $1,000s. There's people that spent over $100,000. There's people that spent to get stuff graded that was originally either they purchased it for or at the time was selling for like $100,000, and now it's down to like $8,000 that they sell for. So people are losing money. And not only that, there's people that are slowly getting more and more into the market. So what does that mean? That means it's going to be flooded a lot more. So what we saw is, we saw a fake market, as some people were saying, was a lot of times you'll see the really good price hike, and then over time, like I said, the trend, the fad, and everything about getting it starts slowly dropping off. And also I just said it, people are throwing so much stuff in to get graded now, and it's just flooding the market. To me, this reminds me a lot of like the trading card game of sports cards. For a while there, if you got games and they weren't graded, they really weren't worth that much. You had to actually get them graded to get them valued at a good, decent price. But then, even then, I'll just keep saying it. They lost value over time because everything started getting graded, so everything was graded. But what I want to talk today is about how is the market right now for just retro games in general. So I pulled up 3 different price lines based off of price charting, not a sponsor. This is just a website that I like to use for all my gaming stuff to figure out my pricing and everything like that. So let's go ahead and pull this up. So we got the loose listings for Super Mario 64. So I have three of them. I got Mario 64, Resident Evil 2, and then Halo Combat Evolved. The only reason I chose these ones is they were kind of common games, plus the value of them was different, and they were different consoles. So if we look here, before this whole COVID hit and that these games were at an all-time high, 2020, you can see right here, this is hype of COVID. Super Mario 64 was actually selling for around $50. And then you can see here, when it really started backing off, the price really dropped. And then we had a nice little hike again, but it's just kind of been playing even. And if you look at it now, it's looking about the price as it was pre-COVID. So has the market really dropped off too much? Not really. We're kind of back where we were. We're not seeing like 2010 prices and stuff like that, which I really wish I would have been collecting back then. But we're seeing it just kind of level out. And then, obviously there is some stuff that affects this. Like, I can't look for certain off the top of my head, but there was a Mario All-Star 3D that came out that had this featured on it for Switch. And then we also had Nintendo 64 expansion, which was part of the membership online for Switch, released. And I believe, I can't remember for sure if this game's on there or not. But we'll see some stuff like that happen, and that will affect the value of the game, because a lot of people will sell their Mario 64, get rid of it, or the supply and demand will drop off because why do I need it on the 64 when I can just play it on my Switch with a better controller? That's my opinion anyways. If we look over at Resident Evil 2, we're seeing the same thing. So fortunately, it seems like these are complete. Let's switch this over. Oh, maybe we can't. There we go. Here we go. We'll look at the loose and the complete one. Now you can see this is really leveled with increasing. Once again, the 20 back then, I really wish I would have invested in these games more. They're really cheap, but as of right now, the loose price for Resident Evil 2 is around $27, $28, which is actually a pretty decent deal. But once again, we are just seeing the market leveling out, guys. Well, it seems like this is holding a bit more value, but I think a lot of that has to do with the way Resident Evil has been released lately. So we have, Resident Evil 2 Remake, we got Resident Evil 4 Remake, and all these games that are coming out and are really building a hype. So the supply is becoming more for it. Plus, you sometimes can't always go buy price everything, because if you look right here, Disc 2 only sold for 21 bucks, or Disc 2 is the only one tested, maybe, that's what it was, for 10 bucks. But this one's really nice. It comes with the booklet and stuff. But you can see that right there. It's been holding value, and it's very level. Like the wave is exactly the same. Now, finally, we will jump in on Halo. Now, if we follow this from the release in 2013, which obviously it spiked way up. I think that's when they first started actually figuring out the cost of this stuff. It's the same. If you look at all these, the market hasn't really crashed at all, hey guys. It's really just kind of went up, and if anything right now, it's just playing even that it was back in 2020 and a little bit before that, maybe when COVID was kind of coming in and everybody was buying all this stuff out of nostalgia. We saw a decent hike up, and then it's just been kind of playing even. So like I said, we're not seeing the market actually crashing, guys. We just saw the graded market itself crash. I've talked about in my past videos what I think is going to happen with the market for just retro games in general, not the graded ones. And I think down the road we might see some decreases. It's going to be a while probably. I think right now, like the consoles I really recommend to buy for right now is original Xbox, Xbox 360, PS3, and PS4. Those four right there you are getting games super cheap for them. Especially the original Xbox. They're almost to me, they're practically giving them away if you go to any stores, because they're just not very expensive at all. I think that has to do with the way that the market was flooded for these consoles. Obviously, PS2 is very good to collect for. Now, 64, we saw that in that price charting thing. The 64 is still pretty iffy. I feel to me, it feels like the prices are dropping off, and I think that has a lot to do with the Switch releasing the expansion, which if you have the upgraded membership, you get a bunch of N64 games you can play on there. I think that has a lot to do with it. I know that when they released the Super Nintendo and the NES games onto the Switch Online, it to me felt like those games really dropped off in price too, because like I said, people were like, well, why do I need this now? I can just play it on my Switch, and they were selling everything off. So the supply was going up, but the demand was going down because nobody really needed it anymore because you could play it on there. Plus, everybody already had the Switch, so they were already playing that, and it just seemed like that's the way it's going to go. Once again, I am not an expert on this. I'm not I'm not a psychic. I can't see in the future. I don't know exactly what's going to go on. And I know this opinion that I have is a lot of people don't agree with. Most people I talk to a lot of times might and comment believe that this is not the end, that it's only going to get higher because the stuff's going to become less and less in supply. This stuff is breaking down. I do know I've seen a lot of people talk about how consoles themselves are actually pretty cheap now, but the games are actually going up, which is, if you ask me, a little backwards. I figured the consoles would be breaking down right now, but I know they definitely don't make the video game consoles like they used to. You can still fire up an Atari like 40 years later and it's still fine, even if it hasn't been touched. Like I got an Atari Junior that was covered in dust, and I basically just sprayed it off, plugged it in, and it was good to go. So consoles themselves are pretty cheap right now if you guys are looking to get into that market. But the games themselves seem to be on the rise, or at least breaking even. So the market has not crashed as of now. But like I said, it seems like the generation that's going up in price is usually the kids that are out of their house, out of making their own money, and they want to relive the glory days. So like right now, I'm expecting around the corner that we'll start seeing an increase in Wii games, PS3 games, and maybe Xbox 360 games a little bit. But I don't like to say that about Sony and Microsoft, especially now since, like I said, they flooded the market with their video games. When the Switch, I think, was one of the first consoles that Nintendo released in a while that did very well. But the Wii, like I said, the Wii, the PS3, and the Xbox all had so much shovelware thrown at us that everybody had shelves and shelves of games and a bunch of garbage games. But for that matter, I know a lot of people love the Wii, but I was not a fan. I feel like half the games on that thing were just absolute garbage, and I don't like the controls at all. But I feel like those markets, you might see a little bit of an increase in them. But like I said, there was so much of that stuff that the supply is super high and the demand is not as much. So do I think you should hold on to your old stuff? Of course. It depends on what your goal in mind is. Do you still play it? Do you look at it as an investment later on? But as somebody who is dealing with retro game collection addiction and just not finding the time to play these games anymore, I released a lot of stuff that I did not need anymore, and I feel a lot better about it, and I made a pretty good buck off of it considering I bought a lot of this stuff a few years ago before the stuff really shot off. So I'm happy with what I got, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Obviously, I love reading your guys' comments, so please make sure that you comment. But I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that the market is just going to continue to stay where it is for like the loose copies of games, complete in box? Obviously not the graded ones themselves. Or do you think that down the road we are going to see a little bit of a decrease? Or do you think that, obviously the prices are going to just skyrocket someday and we're never going to see this bubble pop? So let me know what you guys think down below. But as always, stay retro, my friends, and I will see you in the next video.